All right.
All right. Keeping me in line.
Let's do the thing.
Hello and welcome to That Nerd Thing, where we uncover the magical impact that fandoms have on our lives. I'm Morgan, and today I am joined by my friend Maggie, who is joining us all the way from Portugal. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Hello. We've been talking about this for like a hot minute, so I think it's a long time coming.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited.
Yeah, and I posted on Instagram earlier how you're like definitely part of the origin story of this podcast, so I'm so happy to have you here. Yeah.
No pressure about origin stories. Oh, gosh. Okay.
Well, don't you remember we were going back and forth? Because I think you were planning your podcast, and I still was like, yeah, I'm not doing a podcast. But then you started talking about like, I think you were like, Morgan, don't you think it would be fun? Like, you know, like the stuff you're talking to me about with all this nerdy stuff, you could talk about it in a podcast. And I was like, oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, I'm a little bit sad just because you kept saying no to doing a podcast, and I always wanted you to be my co-host. You're like, I would never. And here you are killing it on this podcast. But we are where we need to be for sure. Because this podcast needs to exist.
That's so funny. Yeah, that's true. I remember you were asking me, and I was like, no, sorry, not happening. I'm never doing a podcast.
Not going to happen. And then, you know, fast forward 6 months or whatever it was. And here we are.
So do you want to tell listeners a little bit about yourself and your podcast and what you do?
Sure. Morgan and I have known each other for a little while from do they know about your day job?
Yeah, they do.
Okay. Morgan and I have known each other for a long while, just from the licensed therapist space, and became fast friends. And one of the things that she has helped me with is build my business, which is the Unapologetically Childfree community. And I have a podcast of the same name. And we're all about helping child-free people find the community they never knew existed, and now they can't live without. So we do meetups and we do vacations. We're doing a vacation in Bali in April. I'm so excited.
That's amazing.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. Planning a vacation for like 10 to 14 people is a lot. But it's going to be epic. We've had 2 vacations already, and I'm ready for the next one.
So where can people who are interested in that, where can they find you?
They can go to unapologeticallychildfree.com, or they can find me on Instagram, which is where I live most of the time, at childfree_communities.
Awesome. And you know what's so amazing about you've always been so supportive. Like, you're so encouraging, you're supportive, but you're also not, like, you're realistic and grounded. Because I know, like, you know, we've spoken about this before in, like, the coaching world, how there's a lot of, like, those false promises and all of that stuff.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you say that, though, because I think I can be that way for other people in terms of, like, realistic and grounded. And every now and again, like, I get a feather in my ear, and I'm like, I'm shooting for it. I'm like going for the stars. And that's where you and other people are like, okay, let's get realistic for a minute, Maggie.
I don't know. I'm probably like not realistic either. I'm probably like, yeah, you could do it. All this is amazing.
I mean, yeah. I'm getting sucked in a little bit into like some of I haven't bought anything. Don't worry. I haven't bought anything.
Okay.
But I'm getting a little bit like in the, maybe I should take a copywriting course, or maybe I should do.
Maggie. No.
I know.
You don't need it. You don't need it.
I know. I think it's because I just built the website for Bali. And I just redid my therapist's website because I have taken courses and really honed in my relationship counseling skills. And so I specialize in working with child-free people, building healthy relationships, whether they're single or partnered. So I rebuilt this whole website, like from scratch, like didn't even like, it was just a brand new one. And I was walking through and I was like, maybe I need to be a programmer, or maybe I need to be a graphic designer, or maybe I need to be a copywriter. Like all of these things were coming up.
Yeah. So. Okay. Talk about nerdy. I think you fit in. I know that's something we've spoken about before, where you're like, I don't really feel like I'm a nerd.
I've never felt like I never felt like I was into anything enough to be considered a nerd. I've always thought of myself as dorky. I've always thought of myself as awkward, but I never thought of myself as nerdy, because for me, nerdy was like there's a passion. There's a thing that ties everybody together. Mm-hmm. Dorky is just like you're a little bit quirky. You're a little off in my mind, right? Like that's how I thought about it. Like, okay, you're just a strange little odd duck, Maggie. But I didn't ever have like a thing where I was just into it, aside from maybe some bands. But even then, I was never like as far in as I saw other people. So I always kind of felt like, I guess, but I never really felt like I was part of a fandom.
Did you ever want to be part of a fandom?
I mean, I'm sure, because I've always been a bit of a follower, especially like in my youth. Oh man, that makes me feel old. I think it's more about fitting in, but I can't think of like a fandom. Well, okay, I can think of one. And I don't know if this is considered a fandom. Probably. So we all remember the band Hanson. Mbop came out when I was like 10, and I was obsessed. I was going to marry Taylor Hanson. I had it all in my head. We were going to meet at the mall. I was going to pretend I didn't know him, and he was going to be like, oh, somebody doesn't know I'm famous, and he's going to fall in love with me, and it was going to be great. Keep in mind, I'm like 10 years old. Eventually, they put out pretty early on. They're the first people I ever knew who did a membership, like an online membership.
Oh, wow.
And they've had this online membership now for probably 20 years. More than that, maybe. I'm more than 20 years older than 10. Yeah, 25 years they probably had this online membership. And you got like advanced tickets and extra merch and like all this stuff. And I always wanted to be like in the membership. Money was a reason I couldn't do it. But also there was this thing of like, I don't know, I always kind of felt like, was I even going to belong? Did I even care about them enough? Like, which I did. The number of unauthorized biographies that I have read about Taylor Hanson and Hanson as a band, I could probably build a library. I think that was probably my closest.
Yeah.
And then I guess I had my like phase of being a groupie in college, but that didn't feel like a fandom. That just kind of felt like a lifestyle.
Wait, for Hanson still?
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I wish. No, everybody made fun of me for liking Hanson like into my 20s. Like even today, like I still listen to Hanson and people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, Taylor Hanson's the one that got away, but he has 7 children. That would have never worked. No, for this guy named Gavin DeGraw. And then like went on the road with him and some people that he like
wait,
opening acts.
What? I didn't know this about you. No.
I haven't told you this?
Oh my God.
Oh.
I know. So I know of him because he did the theme song for One Tree Hill. But wait a second.
Yeah.
Whoa.
See, this is the problem. This is why I don't fit into fandoms, is because the minute that you're like, this is really cool, I'm like, but I'm not that cool. Like I immediately go like, I can feel it. Like right now I'm like, oh, but it wasn't that big of a deal. Like I am like full on wanting to like minimize 3 years of my life.
No, I see what you're saying because I feel the same way sometimes. But
yeah.
But wait a second, Maggie, what? You were like on the road?
Sort of. Okay. So I call myself a risk-averse rebel. All right. So I'm in undergrad. And so we didn't go like on the road because it was my roommate and I. And she's the one that met him at first. And she's the one that got invited. And I was just the plus one, which I enjoyed, was just being a plus one. And we just drove everywhere. So sometimes it would just be go up on a Saturday and just stay overnight and then go back for Monday to be at school, to be in class. Sometimes it would be multiple shows within a weekend. I did a couple of things in college that allowed me to register for classes early. So it wasn't until senior year until I had classes before 10 in the morning or on Fridays. So I didn't have Fridays. I didn't have early morning Monday classes. So we really would go from like Thursday night to like Friday morning if there were multiple shows. And so we would just kind of, sometimes we slept in the car if we didn't get, if they were driving and they didn't have a hotel room that was extra, because sometimes roadies would bunk up together and give us a spare hotel room. Yeah.
I'm speechless.
Well, this is not something to write home about because I failed Trig because I was in Lansing, Michigan at a music festival before music festivals were like Coachella.
Uh-huh.
It was just a bunch of bands in, a giant field or parking lot or like state fair ground kind of thing. Anyway, so I was in Lansing and was like, oh crap, but stronger language. And my roommate was like, what happened? And I was like, my trig final is right now, and we're in Michigan, and I was in college in Raleigh, North Carolina.
So wait, okay. Have you met any other like celebrities, musicians, anything like that?
Probably not as big as them, as Gavin, because he had a #1 hit, but a bunch of he was the least favorite of mine, but he opened the most doors. He had the biggest shows, the biggest crowds, which was like wild. But smaller bands, and that's what I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Was just like the camaraderie of the band, and they're not big enough yet to like, you know, have all the like crazy security, or I can't think of at some of the big festivals I met people, but I don't really remember who they were.
Yeah.
I met a lot of like 1-2 hit wonders from like 2004 to 2005 to 2006.
Wow. This is why I love doing the podcast, the things that I learn. And you're also a Swiftie.
Yes. I can officially call myself that. It's on my new website, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Identified. Yeah. They'll like get to know me so that my clients are like fully aware. You know?
That's funny.
Yeah. I think that's also another like fandom that I struggle to like even like want to touch on because it goes freaking deep. And I'm like, I feel like I'm ankles in terms of like the depth of the fandom.
Yeah.
And yet I have people in my life who are like, Maggie, you're like you're like neck deep, you know?
Oh,
so I think it's
sure.
perception.
Yeah. I mean, you're going on, in my opinion, the best Taylor Swift podcast there is. So they only ask Swifties yes, as of right now, they're only asking Swifties. So you're definitely one.
That is a huge compliment if they think I'm a Swift.
I mean, you've seen her perform. You love her music. I know we've spoken about her, just like, you know, her life and all of that. So you're a Swiftie.
I will say that I don't think I've listened to anything other than EDM, which is what my partner and I listen to, or Taylor Swift in the last 2 years.
Wow. Interesting combination.
I mean, for real. But what's funny is he has found like dance mixes that include Taylor Swift, or like there was one morning, oh my gosh. So maybe I'm a Swiftie. So there was one morning I was sleeping in and he's down working out. He's downstairs working out and he like puts on Taylor Swift, but it's like dance Taylor Swift-ish. And like I texted him and I was like, is this my alarm? Is this like my siren? Is this like my siren alarm? Or like, you know that thing where you're like from Hocus Pocus where you're just like all of the adults come?
Yeah. The past few months, that's all I've been listening to because I'm going to her show in Miami in October. And I'm like, I told my nieces I'm studying her music and the set list. Like I'm going to be the one performing it. I'm like, I need to know every word. And then I'm like, I need to make sure I know every song just in case it's a surprise song. And I feel like I'm studying for like the SATs or something.
Yeah, it's like full on your dissertation.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So before I went so I've been to the Eras Tour twice, and I had this like amazing arc. And I think I told you about like this amazing arc that I had with the Eras Tour. If I didn't, here's new information. So I saw her, it was her second weekend of the tour in Vegas. And so I had never seen her in concert before. I took Kelly, who is my co-host on the Unapologetically Childfree podcast, and she lives in Vegas, and I was so lucky to get tickets. Anyway, long story, less long. We go, and my partner and I had just broken up. I had just moved back home with my mom. At the time, I was 36. I was in my late 30s, and I'm just about to move to Portugal. So I'm in like the throes of depression. Like I am not doing well. And I'm pretending my heart out that I am fine because I'm really good at that. We go to the show and it was epic. And it was both of us. And she said, she's like, I mean, Taylor Swift, it's fine. Like I know some of her songs. One, she knew most of them. And then two, we both were like, that was the best concert of our lives. Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, I've gone to hundreds of concerts. So like high bar. So then I get the opportunity to go in Lisbon when she was here because a friend of mine, ironically, a friend of a friend gets pregnant, can't fly from Germany to Portugal. And so she sells me her ticket at face value. And I'm like, face value? Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so we go, and it's 4 of us, me and a friend who really loved Taylor Swift, another friend who's like, I don't know, like most of her stuff, and like another friend who's kind of in the same boat. And the biggest difference that I saw from, I think it was March of 2023 to like June, July of 2024, is she was so much freer, looser. Mm-hmm. She was a little stiff, in my opinion, looking back now. I always chalked it up to like, it was the second weekend. She's wanting to like be rehearsed and like do her things. And I had never seen her in concert before, so I'd never seen her be silly. And then seeing her in Lisbon and seeing all the TikToks and everything leading up to it, I was like, oh, shoot. That was because she was depressed and she was heartbroken, and now she's in love and she's having a good time. And so I had the same arc with her, because when I saw her in Lisbon, my partner and I had gotten back together, and he had moved over to Portugal, and life had just become this magical thing. And I was like, I'm experiencing this concert as if it's brand new, because I'm a new person and it's so much more fun. Like the first one I cried, the second one I didn't cry. It was magic. I think, you know, if we talk about me and fandoms, I think music in general is probably a fandom for me.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, wait a second, Maggie, you're totally a music nerd.
If only I could play a musical instrument or sing or read music or like any of these things. Yeah, for sure. Another little story, just to kind of, I guess, me thinking through my own fandoms. I always wanted to play the flute. And when I was in 5th grade, there was this guy at a restaurant/bar that I probably shouldn't have been at, but my parents took me. The guy was playing a flute. He was selling a cassette tape. Yes, I'm that old. He was selling a cassette tape, and my parents bought it. And that's what I would listen to go to sleep. So I would put it in my little boom box, and I would listen to the flute to go to sleep until about the time that the Harry Potter soundtrack came out. And then I would listen to the Harry Potter soundtrack, but I would have to skip track 1.
Why did you have to skip track 1?
It was too like it was too intense to try to go to sleep to, so I would have to skip it.
Okay, yeah, totally a music nerd. Wow.
Are we at wow?
Wow, because you kept saying like, you know, I don't know if I'm a nerd. I'm not nerdy enough about anything. And I think like you don't have to be super nerdy. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to be the biggest fan. A nerd is just somebody who's passionate and like shows interest. And that's how you are about music, totally.
I guess so. I mean, music's something that like I go to for sure. Like, yeah. I think it's why it's so easy to listen to Taylor Swift, especially in 2024, because she has like 9 million songs. So it touches on every mood you could possibly want. She's got a song.
You know, going back to you going to her show at 2 different points in your life, I think that's something I also love so much about these stories that we consume. Like, they're not just things that we listen to or read or watch in order to escape. Like, they help us in our own lives even feel our own emotions more deeply and understand them more.
Oh, yeah. I think about it in this way of like, you know, I have it in my head of, you know, I can do it with a broken heart, meaning I can do my life this way. And I also think about how, like, as we're talking, and I'm reflecting on all the moments, especially like I haven't thought about doing the groupie thing in a long time. And I'm just thinking about how songs would just make me swell up, like my heart just kind of open up, or how even today a song will come on and I'm just like, I love this song. And it just gives me a feeling, and it gives me peace or satisfaction, or it just like guts me or anything like that, or, you know, and things like that.
I definitely feel that way about music more than any other form of art. Just like very connected to it, to each song, like remembering when I first listened to it, or if it reminds me of situations. Just music's so powerful.
It is. And I think it also, well, let me ask you this. Are you a melody person or are you a lyrics person? Primarily.
Okay, primarily, because I do love both. Oh, this is such a tough question. I mean, I do love lyrics a lot. Like but I guess if I would have to pick, it would be the melody.
Okay. So tell me about, because I'm lyrics, 100%. Tell me what it is about melody that is inching out lyrics.
I guess, well, because I also love just listening to instrumental music, jazz music, classical. I've always been like, I guess I feel it in the instruments. I used to play jazz guitar. I love the blues. I don't know. But this is such a tough question. But I do also love the lyrics. And like their strong lyrics can really captivate me. I don't know. I think I feel it. I feel it more with the music.
So my partner is more of a music. And he has said that he rarely pays attention to the lyrics unless it's a song he's going to send me, because he knows I'm going to pay attention to the lyrics, and he doesn't want me to like read into them and think that like we're in a fight or like that he's like doing something wrong or whatever.
That's hilarious.
It's hilarious. It's also like, I'm not that scary, dude. Like, it's fine. But he's not wrong. Like, he can send me a song from like a DJ or an artist that we really both enjoy, and he's just sending it because he's like bopping his head and he's just dancing in his chair, you know? I hear it and I'm like, this is a breakup song. Why are you sending me a breakup song, you know? I can hear songs that I like the music, and if I don't like the lyrics, if I think the song is like, it's not my vibe, it's talking about things that I don't, what's the word? Support. If it's got words that I don't support, it's got a theme that I don't support, I can't listen to the song. It ruins it. No matter how good the beat is, no matter how good of a dance bop it is, I cannot get past the lyrics. And I can listen to a song that may not have the best music if like the lyrics get to me.
Yeah, I understand that. And, you know, now that I'm thinking about it more, it also depends the type of music, because I think I only prefer the instruments if it's classical or jazz or instrumental or like orchestra. Otherwise, I pay attention to the lyrics. So it definitely depends. I had on the podcast a few episodes ago, Henry Kapersky. He's like a music director. He composes music. He went on tour with Alan Cumming. Like, he was amazing. And he was talking about, like, he loves jazz, and he loves it because it's like when you never hear the same jazz song twice. It's always different. And it's like this vortex where you like are like transported to another dimension of like time and space when you listen to it. And I was like, yes, like he gets it. And you know, like I'm like very basic guitar and piano, so maybe that's part of it too. Like when you play an instrument, you listen to instruments more,
and probably able to like hear the piano when it's part of a group of instruments.
What I love about lyrics, because you know I'm studying Taylor Swift right now, is also seeing the evolution of the artist.
Oh, yeah. So, Hanson, I think, honestly, I could do a whole episode on Hanson. I'm not even kidding. So, Hanson has put out an album almost every year, if not every other year, since I was 10.
Wow.
Maybe there was like a chunk of time in there that, you know, people listening, they're like, no. There was like those 3 years there. Okay, fine. But they have a lot of music. There was one album that came out. This was when I was a baby counselor, and it was like basically swing. It felt like,
ooh, I love swing.
Swing music.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not exactly, but like close, like horns and all this stuff. And you're like, this is Hanson. A lot of people will hear, if you don't tell them that it's Hanson, they may like the song depending on the genre. But if you listen to the lyrics, like even, okay. All right. Oh my God. I'm getting like so excited. I'm like sweating a little bit. I'm like so pumped about this. If you listen even to Mbop, if you listen to the lyrics, it is one of the most heavy, kind of depressing songs ever. And we're just like dancing around when we were 10 years old to this song. Because the whole premise of like, I don't know if you're familiar, but the whole premise of the chorus is, and in Mbop, it's gone. It's talking about life, and your relationships are just gone. Like, how fast life goes and how just it's heavy, man.
Wow. Yeah. I barely remember that song, but that's not the vibe I got from it.
No. And I think Taylor Swift has that too in some of her songs that a lot of people have discredited her because she can package heartbreak in a dance bop. And you're like, yeah. And then like you look back and you're like, oh, I think about like Death by a Thousand Cuts. That ish is heavy. Yeah. Hanson has the same kind of evolution in terms of their writing and all of those things because they've been around for so long.
And I think that's why people also get so fixated on the fandoms that they're a part of, because they also see the fandoms evolve in a way over time to kind of like follow along with their own journey in a way. So for example, in terms of the Harry Potter fandom, I still consider myself more of a fan of like MuggleCast and the community. And they've kind of grown over the years too, as I've grown. And so there's that connection there rather than, you know, just it being one work of art that has sort of like stayed in the time it's at. Like it grew.
Yeah. And that I think is what good art, and I would say that writing has a level of art to it, or even music lyrics and all of those kinds of things, is at different stages of your life, you're going to see it differently.
Yeah.
And so when you're, how old was I when Harry Potter? I don't know. I was a little late to the train because my sister was into it. And so if my sister was into it, I couldn't be, because like I couldn't be like her, you know? So it like took me a minute. But when you're in middle school, that's a completely different vibe of what you're going to hear. Not vibe, it's completely different impact that you're going to get
for sure.
from a book or a song or something. So you have talked to a lot of people about a lot of different fandoms, and you are a part of many different fandoms. Tell me a little bit, or educate me, if you will, on some other fandoms that you would say have evolved well and allowed for like high schoolers to become 30-somethings and not feel as if I'm stepping back into my high school life when I'm involved in the fandom.
I don't know if I have an answer.
So MuggleCast for sure.
Yeah, I think Taylor Swift, her music has definitely changed. Another fandom that, because I feel like I'm very like fandom adjacent. I feel like I'm like learning about things and I'm watching movies and TV shows that I wouldn't have watched before, but I don't know if I'm really in the fandoms. But one fandom that I feel like I'm slowly starting to enter is actually Marvel.
Okay, two things. We're going to start with one. You cannot sit here and tell me, I think I'm fandom adjacent.
Like for some fandoms. Like
I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, no.
we need to start over.
Yeah. No. Like, and like, I'm a big fan of a lot of things, but I feel like my nerdiness is more just who I am and like interested in different things. But in terms of fandoms, I don't know if there's like a specific fandom that I'm really involved in now. I think I kind of like from podcasting, because now I'm just meeting so many different people.
Yeah. Well, okay. So podcasting, though, when done, I think in the way that you're doing it, where it's this fun thing to do and you're doing something that is an interest of yours and is really about bringing people's interests together and all of that. I think that has a level of art to it, because it's difficult when you're talking about a different topic, like almost a completely different topic every episode.
Yes. And that was something I struggled with for so long when it came to creating the podcast. But so a few episodes ago, I had Eric from MuggleCast on, and they actually put my show in like a perspective that I was like, oh, I kind of like viewing it like that. They're like, it's kind of like you're doing a documentary on like people's journey into nerdiness. And I was like, oh yeah. Like it's more about the people and their own journeys into nerdiness rather than specific fandoms. And I think when I view it that way, that it's more about like the stories of people, that's more fun. And I'm just meeting so many cool people.
Well, when you started talking about this podcast, so much of it was you wanted, at least from my recollection, is it what you didn't want to just be Harry Potter or just be Taylor Swift or just be one thing. And you were talking about, correct me if I'm inaccurate, but it was you wanted to, or I felt that you wanted to highlight and normalize and celebrate and really just give voice to, give a face, not yours, but faces and voices to the masses of people who enjoy each of these various different types of fandoms, and how it doesn't look just this one way.
Yeah, no, that was totally it. I think my tagline was like elevate the voices of nerds.
Yes. And I want to go back to Marvel for a minute. Marvel's a fandom?
Well, so I had on the show 2 hosts of the Vigilante Vibes podcast, and they're all about Marvel. They have a whole Marvel online community, and their community is it's like over 50,000 people. But I know what I love about them is they're all about non-toxicity and pure positivity in the Marvel fandom, because there's a lot of like racism and sexism. It could be kind of bad in there, but yeah. And so what they've been having me do is I'll watch like a show, and then I'll go on their podcast and give my psychological analysis of the show and the characters. And like, that's been so fun. And
how do I not know this?
I know. Yeah, that's true. What I love about like their fan base and that part of the fandom is I'll say in the show, they'll ask me if I saw this movie or this show. And I'm like, no, I didn't. And at first I was scared to say that, like, hey, I'm really new to this fandom, but they've all been so supportive. So I feel like that group and that corner of the Marvel fandom is really amazing.
I think I'm going to have to give my partner this information because I've watched a lot of Marvel since getting together with this person.
Yeah.
We went to the latest movie, and which is apparently like the third of the series or whatever.
Yes,
or something.
I haven't seen it yet. I need to.
And I was like, he watched the second one in preparation of the third one, and I was like, I haven't even seen the first one. Is this a problem?
You haven't seen
And
Deadpool?
No.
Okay.
But Morgan, remember, I don't own a TV. Like, I haven't owned a TV in like 3 years. So
I get it.
I haven't seen a lot of movies. I haven't seen a lot of TV shows.
But you read a lot.
I do read a lot. I read a stupid amount. Like, it's pretty great. But yeah, he loves Marvel stuff. That's his jam. I'll have to give him that podcast information because I knew nothing about it.
Yeah, and they were on an episode of mine. They're great. Max and Megan, vigilante vibes.
Yeah, I'll pass that on because that's his thing. I watched the movie and I was like, I thought it was funny, but I was also like really lost on a lot of the like inside stuff that he was like geeking out about, nerding out about at the end. He was like, so did you see the thing? And I thought that there was going to be more of this. And I was surprised that this person did. And I'm like,
Yeah, tell them to check out their community. They have a Facebook group. I think it's called the Nerd Haven. It's pretty great.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Nerd Haven. Can I just at least say, as someone who grew up feeling dorky, awkward, weird in a time when those were derogatory terms, it is so refreshing to see the ownership of words like nerdy coming back and being like, this is like, it's almost like nerdy is cool, but not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, everyone wants to be a nerd now. It's not embarrassing anymore.
No, I don't know how much you're aware of like Book Talk, but there's this conversation going on Book Talk of how even just that corner of the internet is leading to what's that word, like reduced intellectualism? What's that phrase? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like de-intellectualism? I don't know. It's basically how when you get the same types of recommendations from the same types of people, it's almost kind of dumbing down society. There's a specific word for it, but I can't remember. And I think that was happening a lot in my, late 90s, early 2000s, when I was a late teen, early 20s of just like, being smart, getting good grades, being really passionate about something that didn't include, sports ball. That was just like, ew. And it was almost like it was bad to be smart or it was bad to be interesting.
Yep.
And now I see the world as embracing our differences and embracing the fact that like my brain doesn't work the same as your brain. I mean, I've been sitting here the entire podcast with like my bucket of fidget toys so that I can like focus, right? I would never feel confident when I was younger to admit that I have to sit here and do this.
I love it. Things are so different now.
I do appreciate that there's not one box that we feel that we all have to fit into, especially I'm in my 30s. Like I just turned 38. Like I'm 38. I'm too old to try to be like everybody else. It's hard enough to just try to be like me.
I know, right?
Like it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And even going back to what you said of like no longer having the fear to admit that you don't know something. Oh man, that one's so hard for me. Especially I think that touches on how hard it is for me to call myself a nerd of something or involved in a fandom. It's hard for me to admit that I don't know something. So when somebody asks me like, oh, you're a Swiftie, have you thought about, what do you think about this one word in this one song and how it relates to this other one word in this one song? And I'm like, I don't have an answer for you. And that's really hard because then it feels like I'm dumb and that I'm not as committed. Same thing if anybody asks me stuff about Hanson or if people ask me things about any kind of music really of like, I don't know. I think there's some conditioning there. And I'm just glad that your podcast is like deconditioning us. Deconstruction, if you will, of the old way of smart is bad and nerdy is bad.
Thank you.
I mean, for me, my whole world is about normalization of the child free. And a lot of people say, why do you need that? Why does that need to exist? And unless you're in it, you don't get it. And as someone who has always struggled with the identity of a nerd, like even when you call me that, I'm like, no, I'm not nerdy enough, right? Like we need people to normalize and say, it is so cool to have a passion. It is so cool to have a hobby. Like I can't remember the last time that I met somebody who I'm privileged. I'm privileged and the people that I meet are interesting as hell, or interesting as all get out, whichever version of that you want to put in your podcast. The people that I meet are so interesting that when I ask about what their hobbies are, it's not, I like to travel. And I don't really know. So many people now are being able to say, I'm learning to cross stitch. I'm learning to crochet. I'm learning to watercolor. I'm in a short story writing class, right? We're meeting people who are embracing these interests because it's cool to be nerdy.
Definitely. This just reminds me back before either of us started doing like the podcast stuff and we were doing all this online business stuff. And one of the things I was trying to teach people is like, hey, have hobbies, have fun. And I'm like, wait a second, I need to do this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Burnout prevention and working on perfectionism and all of that. Absolutely. Have hobbies, have a life. I talk to people all the time that like, living life on your own terms and being your own person means you get to do whatever you want. Like, oh my God. So my partner and I, we were talking about this the other day, and Morgan, you're going to be very disappointed in me, and it's fine. I'm terrible at doing like do nothing days, just binge watch TV or read a book for hours or not have a responsibility. We finally did one. I probably have 3 a year, maybe 4.
Oh, Maggie.
I try to do. I know. Because sometimes like my do nothing days, and I'm like, oh, this is a great day for me to like clean the baseboards or, and I'm not kidding.
I know.
He jokes with me because I have my cleaning toothbrush, and he's like, whenever I get out the cleaning toothbrush, he's like, oh gosh, okay. Could you be nerdy about cleaning? I think that might be another thing I'm a part of. But I was in my do nothing day, and this is so foreign for him to see me actually like embrace a full do nothing day. Like we did no responsibilities. I think we watched 3 movies, probably more movies than I'd watched in the last month and a half, 2 months, 3 months, maybe. But anyway, I was telling him, I was kind of explaining like a do nothing day is you get to literally do whatever you want, whenever you want, the way that you want. And he kind of looked at me and he was joking a little bit, and he was like, and we're adults? And I was like, yeah, we're adults who get to do adult things whenever we want, whatever we want. And I think when you're talking about like embracing the person that you are and living life, for me, I talk about live life on your own terms. And that means sitting and watching 3 movies in a row, or, eating popcorn for lunch, or taking a nap in the middle of the day, when we actually listen to our minds and our bodies and live the way that lights us up. Can't beat that.
Love that. What a perfect way to wrap up the show. Maggie, thank you so much for being here. I definitely want to have you back on.
Yes, please.
It's so fun to talk to you. So again, where can people find you?
Best place to find me is on Instagram. Yep. So I know that you'll link it in your show notes, but it's at childfree_communities. Come hang out with me on Instagram. And if you're child free and you want to come to Bali, we'd love to have you.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Please make sure that you are following That Nerd Thing on your favorite podcast app so that you never miss an episode. And I would love it if you could please rate the show 5 stars wherever you are listening to it. And you can get in touch with me at thatnerdthingpod@gmail.com and follow the show on social media at thatnerdthingpod. And bye.
Ciao.